Look, if you have a service-connected disability that makes it hard to get behind the wheel, or even hard to get in and out of a vehicle, there is a VA program designed specifically to help you buy that vehicle or modify the one you have. It is a confirmed benefit. It has been on the books for decades under federal law, and based on how rarely it gets claimed, most veterans who qualify have either never heard of it, assumed they wouldn't be eligible, or figured the process would bury them before they ever saw a result. So today I want to give you the honest version, calm, clear, with the actual official figures and the rules that matter, so you can make an informed decision about whether this is money you've already earned and never touched. I'm going to show you what the VA's own source says, and then give you the reality underneath it. And I want you to know by the end what the program pays, who actually qualifies, what this benefit does and what it does not do, and exactly what happens if you decide to apply. Let me be clear right from the start. This is not a proposal, it is not a rumor, and it is not some bill sitting in a committee somewhere hoping to pass. This is a current, confirmed VA benefit governed by 38 U.S.C. Chapter 39 and the VA's own regulations. It existed before most of the veterans watching this were born, and it is active right now. The program is called the Automobile Allowance and Adaptive Equipment Benefit. Most people just call it the VA Auto Grant. But there are actually two distinct pieces inside this program, and understanding the difference between them is the most important thing I can tell you before we get into the details. Because they work differently, they have different forms, and they go to different VA departments. The first piece is the automobile allowance itself, a one-time financial grant that helps you purchase a vehicle. The second piece is the adaptive equipment benefit, which covers the modifications that make a vehicle drivable or accessible for your specific disability. You may qualify for one, the other, or both. Let me walk you through each one. On the automobile allowance side, here is the headline number from the VA's own Special Benefit Allowance Rate Table, effective October 1st, 2025. The grant is up to $27,074.99. That is the current ceiling, and I want you to hear that phrase, up to, because this is where the honest part of the briefing matters, and I am going to give it to you straight. That money does not come to you. The VA pays that amount directly to the seller of the vehicle, to the dealership, on your behalf. It never passes through your hands. The VA writes the check to the dealer for the purchase price of the vehicle, up to that $27,074.99 cap. If the vehicle costs more than that, and many specially adapted vehicles absolutely do, you cover the difference out of pocket. And let me ground that in real terms, because the number matters a lot. A standard sedan might run you $25,000 to $35,000. But the veterans who need this grant most, those who need hand controls, power-assisted steering and braking, a raised roof, a wheelchair ramp, a motorized lift, are often looking at modified vans that cost anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000 or more after the adaptive work is done. The $27,074.99 takes a serious bite out of that number. It is not nothing. For a lot of veterans, it is the difference between being able to afford a vehicle that works for them and not being able to afford one at all. But I want you walking in with clear eyes. It is a grant toward the vehicle, not a free vehicle. And it is a one-time grant. The automobile allowance does not reset every year. You use it once. Now let's talk about the second piece, because this is where things get genuinely more flexible. The adaptive equipment benefit is separate from the automobile allowance. And unlike the automobile allowance, it is not strictly one time. It covers the cost of modifications to your vehicle. Things like hand controls, modified braking, power steering, wheelchair lifts, raised roofs, specialized seating, prescribed specifically for your disability. The VA can pay for repairs to that adaptive equipment, replacements when things wear out, and reinstallations if you get a different vehicle. As of changes to the regulations under 38 CFR 17.155 to 159 that took effect in July 2024, all adaptive equipment now needs to be prescribed by a VA physician or a certified driver rehabilitation specialist, and it is paid through approved registered providers. There is also a rule that limits it to 2 vehicles in a 4-year period, so plan accordingly. But the point is, even if you already used your one-time automobile grant years ago, you may still be eligible for ongoing adaptive equipment coverage. Those are 2 separate tracks, and you should be checking both. So who qualifies? This is where a lot of veterans talk themselves out of something before they ever look at the actual list. Let me read it to you, because the VA's own regulation at 38 CFR 3.808 under 38 U.S.C. Chapter 39 is specific and may cover conditions you haven't thought about. To qualify for the automobile allowance, the vehicle grant, your service-connected disability needs to include at least one of the following: loss or permanent loss of use of one or both feet, loss or permanent loss of use of one or both hands, permanent decreased vision in both eyes, meaning 20/200 or worse in your better eye with glasses, or if your vision is technically better than 20/200, but your visual field has contracted to 20 degrees or less in your better eye. A severe burn injury, meaning deep, partial thickness or full thickness burns that resulted in scarring and contractures that limit the motion of one or more extremities or the trunk to the point where you cannot effectively operate a vehicle. Or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. Those are the 5 qualifying conditions for the automobile grant itself. And then there is a 6th condition that qualifies you for the adaptive equipment benefit but not the automobile grant: ankylosis, meaning the fusing or immobility of the joint in one or both knees or hips. If your knees or hips are service-connected and you have ankylosis, you are in the program, just on a different track. You can get the modifications to make a vehicle accessible or operable for you, even if you can't get the dollar amount toward the purchase price. Now here is a point I really want to sit with for a second, because I see this misconception all the time. This program does not require a 100% combined disability rating. It does not require you to be catastrophically rated across the board. What it requires is that at least one of those specific qualifying conditions, a loss of limb use, the vision standard, burns, ALS, or ankylosis of the knee or hip, is recognized as service-connected by the VA. You could have a 40% combined rating, but if one of your service-connected conditions is loss of use of a hand, you may be eligible for this program right now. The rating threshold for this program is about the specific condition, not the overall number. So before you decide this isn't for you, look at what's actually on your rating decision and compare it to that list. A couple more eligibility details worth knowing. Active duty service members can apply for this benefit before they separate from the military. You do not have to wait for a discharge rating. And if you are currently enrolled in VA Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment, the Chapter 31 program, the VA can provide adaptive equipment if driving is necessary for completing your rehabilitation plan, even if the need for the equipment is not itself service-connected. That is a separate lane into the same benefit, and most people in VR&E have never heard of it. Here's also something that works in your favor and is genuinely unusual for VA benefits. There is no time limit from your rating decision to when you have to apply for this grant. Most VA programs have windows and deadlines and effective date rules that can cost you years of back pay if you miss them. This program is different. If the VA recognized a qualifying condition in your rating decision from 5 years ago, and you never applied for the automobile grant, you have not lost your eligibility. The door is still open. That is worth repeating. No expiration date on using this benefit once you are rated for a qualifying condition. Go back and check your rating decision. If this is opening up a door you didn't know existed, hit like and subscribe before we go further. It helps our community push this information to the next veteran who needs it. Now let's talk about how to actually apply, because this is where the process matters and where the most expensive mistake gets made. I am going to tell you the single most important rule of this entire program, and I need you to hear it clearly. Do not buy the vehicle before you have VA approval. I will say it again. Do not purchase the vehicle and do not have adaptive equipment installed before the VA has approved your claim and sent you the authorization. This is not a reimbursement program for the automobile purchase. The VA does not cut you a check after the fact to pay yourself back. The VA pays the seller, the dealership, directly. If you go out, fall in love with a truck, buy it with your own money, and then submit a claim, you have bought a truck with your own money. The benefit requires pre-authorization, and the payment flows from the VA to the dealer, not through you. That is the rule, and it is firm. So here is the actual process, step by step. First, you file your application before you buy anything. For the automobile allowance, the vehicle purchase grant, you use VA Form 21-4502, called the Application for Automobile or Other Conveyance and Adaptive Equipment. You file that with your regional VA office. If you are only seeking adaptive equipment modifications and your qualifying condition is ankylosis of the knee or hip, and you do not qualify for the vehicle grant, you use VA Form 10-1394, the application for adaptive equipment for a motor vehicle. And that one goes to the prosthetics department at your VA medical center, not the regional office. If you need specific modifications that are not covered by default on the 21-4502, there is also a Form 10-1394 that can be filed alongside it to request equipment not specified for your particular disability. Second, once the VA processes your claim and approves it, the VA sends the authorization paperwork back to you. Third, you find your vehicle and negotiate with the dealer. Fourth, you sign Block 33A on the 21-4502 form. The dealer gets a copy of the VA authorization forms and the invoice, and the dealer submits those to the VA for payment directly. Fifth, the VA pays the dealer up to the $27,074.99 cap. The process involves three-way coordination between you, the VA regional office, and the dealer, and the prosthetics department also gets looped in on the adaptive equipment side to prescribe the specific modifications for your disability. It is not a single form and done situation. It requires patience and follow-through. But each step is clear, and an accredited VSO can help you navigate it. Let me now be straight with you about what this program does not do, because an honest briefing covers both sides. The grant does not pay for insurance. It does not pay for maintenance, fuel, or registration. It does not cover a lease. This is for purchasing a vehicle, not leasing one. The automobile grant portion, at $27,074.99, will not fully cover the cost of most modified vehicles by itself, particularly fully adapted vans. And again, the automobile grant is one time. Once you use it, it is used. The adaptive equipment track is different and can be revisited, but the purchase grant itself does not reset. There is a narrow process for a second automobile grant in specific circumstances, but it is not common, and it requires a separate determination. Now let me give you the common mistakes that quietly cost veterans this benefit, because some of these are simple and heartbreaking once you see them. Mistake number one, and I'll say it one final time because it matters that much: buying or modifying the vehicle before getting approval. That one action, more than anything else, is what removes the possibility of the benefit applying. Mistake number two: assuming only amputees or wheelchair users qualify. The conditions list includes vision impairment to a very specific threshold, ALS, and severe burn injuries. Go read the list against your actual rating decision before you assume. Mistake number three: not knowing that the adaptive equipment benefit is separate and can be used ongoing, even if you've already used the automobile grant. Mistake number four: missing the ankylosis path. Veterans with service-connected fused knees or hips consistently overlook the adaptive equipment eligibility because they focus on the vehicle grant and see they don't qualify for it. The modification benefit is still there. Mistake number five: veterans who went through VR&E not knowing that adaptive equipment may be available through that program even without a service-connected qualifying condition. And mistake number six: simply never filing because the process feels overwhelming. There is no expiration on this benefit. The door is open. The paperwork has names. An accredited VSO can walk you through the 21-4502 in a single appointment. So here is my honest read on all of it. The VA automobile allowance and adaptive equipment benefit is real, confirmed, and currently active. The grant is up to $27,074.99, paid directly to the vehicle seller, not to you, and it is one time. The adaptive equipment track is separate, prescription-based, and can be renewed. The qualifying conditions are specific, and a 100% overall rating is not required, only that one of those specific conditions be service-connected. Pre-approval is mandatory. There is no expiration date from your rating decision, and most veterans who would qualify have never filed. Your next step is this. Go to va.gov, look up the Automobile Allowance and Adaptive Equipment page, and compare the qualifying conditions against your own rating decision line by line. If any of those conditions are on your decision letter as service-connected, call or visit your VA regional office, or sit down with an accredited veteran service officer at the DAV, the VFW, or the American Legion. They will help you file at no cost. I'm not the VA, I'm not your attorney, and this is educational only. Your eligibility depends on your specific service-connected conditions, and the amounts and rules are subject to change, so verify everything on va.gov before you take action. You earned this. The VA built this program specifically for the veterans sitting right where you are. Go check whether it's yours to claim. Verify it, claim what's yours, and look out for each other. See you in the next brief.